And working with Jay is just fantastic. He has such a natural way with people.
They smiled on screen, but off camera, they were quietly falling apart. For years, Suzie and Steve Fletcher were the steady, comforting faces of the repair shop, who restored broken heirlooms while hiding the cracks in their own lives. Suzie once suddenly walked off the set in tears during filming, and Steve carried a weight so heavy you could see it in his eyes. What was really happening behind their calm expressions and gentle voices? Although the producers tried their best to hide it from the audience, the truth, long buried, has finally come to light, and it's far more disturbing and heartbreaking than anyone expected. The rise of the repair shop. When The Repair Shop first aired on March 27, 2017, few could have predicted the quiet emotional revolution it was about to spark. The show invited viewers into a humble, timber-framed barn in the English countryside, a place where time seemed to pause, and broken things were given a second chance. The Repair Shop grew into a beloved British institution, earning national awards, royal attention, and an international fan base drawn to its warmth, craftsmanship, and humanity. The original concept was straightforward. Bring together a team of skilled artisans, woodworkers, clockmakers, metalworkers, upholsterers, leather specialists, and more, and allow them to restore treasured family heirlooms submitted by the public. These weren't just old objects. They were fragments of memory. A child's toy passed down through generations, a war medal lost in the attic, or a music box that hadn't played a note in decades. In fixing the object, the show often helped heal emotional wounds, mending broken family histories along with the broken items. What made the show unique was its tone. Unlike most reality or lifestyle programming, The Repair Shop resisted sensationalism. The focus of the show was solely on the craftsmanship and the people behind the stories. Each restoration unfolded at its own pace, allowing viewers to appreciate the meticulous care involved and to connect deeply with the stories that accompanied each piece. By Series 4, the show's popularity had grown so significantly that it was placed on the BBC's main channel and introduced to a much wider audience. This move helped solidify The Repair Shop as a flagship program for the BBC, proving that in an age dominated by fast-paced entertainment, there was still room for something gentle, authentic, and profoundly moving. The Repair Shop is produced by Ricochet, a production company with a reputation for high-quality, factual entertainment. Ricochet had already built a name for itself with popular shows, but The Repair Shop marked a distinct turn towards a slower, more emotionally driven format. The show wasn't just about entertainment, it was about preserving cultural memory, honoring skilled labor, and exploring the hidden emotional lives of ordinary people. Over the years, the show has aired more than 300 episodes across 14 series, building an extensive catalog of restorations that span eras, materials, and emotional depth. Each episode typically features 3 to 4 items, giving viewers a rich cross-section of British life and history through the objects people bring in. The show's impact has not gone unnoticed in the industry. In 2019, The Repair Shop was nominated for a Rose d'Or, one of the most prestigious awards in European broadcasting. The nomination acknowledged not only the show's technical quality, but also its emotional intelligence and cultural relevance. More recently, in 2023, it won a National Television Award for Best Daytime Program, solidifying its status as a critical and audience favorite. But perhaps the most public affirmation of The Repair Shop's cultural importance came in October 2022, when then Prince Charles, now King Charles III, appeared in a special episode. His visit wasn't just ceremonial. He actually brought 2 cherished heirlooms with him, an 18th-century bracket clock, and a piece of pottery made for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. Watching the future king sit beside master horologist Steve Fletcher and discuss the inner workings of a centuries-old timepiece was a moment that symbolized everything the repair shop stood for: humility, heritage, and the value of hands-on craftsmanship in an increasingly digital world. The royal appearance was proof the repair shop was not just a television program, it had become a national treasure. Its appeal stretched across generations, from elderly viewers nostalgic for a disappearing era of skilled trades to younger audiences fascinated by the art of making and mending in a throwaway society. And while the restorations are the visual highlight, it's the human stories that make the show so enduring. Every cracked photo frame, every torn teddy bear, and every warped vinyl record tells a story of love, loss, resilience, or remembrance. The emotional honesty of those who bring in their items, paired with the quiet empathy of the restorers, creates a kind of television magic that's both deeply personal and universally understood. But the story of the repair shop didn't begin when the cameras started rolling. Before the fame and the awards, there were personal struggles and quiet battles from Suzie and Steve's early lives that they rarely spoke about. The past had its own cracks and broken pieces, some of which they tried to keep hidden from the public for years. They grew up in silence. Before they became known for their calm and expert work on the repair shop, Suzie and Steve Fletcher grew up in a home that faced quiet struggles. Their childhood was shaped by an environment where feelings weren't openly talked about and personal challenges were often kept hidden. The Fletcher family was close, but that closeness came with a kind of emotional restraint. Their mother, while loving in her own way, suffered from postnatal depression, a condition that, at the time, was rarely discussed and often misunderstood. There wasn't the language or support structure we have today. Instead, women were expected to carry on as normal, leaving their internal battles unspoken and untreated. Unfortunately, this silence settled over the household like a fog, and the children learned early on that not everything painful could be said out loud. To make matters worse, their father experienced a nervous breakdown during their early years. This experience took a significant emotional toll on the family, even if it wasn't openly addressed. He was a working man, a skilled repairer himself, but mental health was not something families like theirs felt equipped to handle. The impact of his breakdown wasn't something that could be repaired with tools or time alone, and it left an emotional absence that shaped Suzie and Steve's daily life. For Suzie and Steve, these early years planted the seeds of something that would quietly define their personalities. They became observers and listeners who were tuned in to the feelings that people struggled to express. And this quiet sensitivity is visible every time they appear on The Repair Shop. Steve's careful handling of delicate timepieces and Suzie's calm presence when working with saddlery and leatherwork come not just from skill, but from a deep-rooted emotional intelligence that formed during their childhood. It's no coincidence that both siblings chose crafts that require focus, care, and a deep respect for the past. Their work is not just technical, it's emotional. They restore objects, but they also offer people a form of closure. And perhaps that instinct to restore, to mend what's been worn or damaged, comes from something they learned in childhood, that not everything can be fixed, but some things can be made whole again. And while they made fans and customers fall in love with their skill, the siblings, especially Suzie, carried a unique set of challenges that she had to hide from the cameras. The challenges Suzie hid from the public. Most people know Suzie Fletcher from The Repair Shop as calm, focused, and in control. But what many don't know is that she went through years of personal hardship and struggles she kept to herself for a long time. Long before she was fixing saddles on TV, Suzie lived through a difficult chapter that challenged her emotionally, physically, and mentally. In her early 30s, Suzie made a bold move. She left the United Kingdom and relocated to the United States, seeking new opportunities and perhaps a new beginning. It was there she met James Allen Baker, known to her and close friends as Rob. They married, and for a while it looked like a happy life was unfolding. However, unfortunately, the relationship was far from what it appeared to be. Behind closed doors, Suzie endured a deeply controlling and emotionally harmful marriage. She later confessed that her life with Rob was defined by a constant undercurrent of fear and anxiety. In interviews, she opened up about living in a situation where she often felt powerless, afraid even to speak her mind, and where her confidence was quietly eroded over time. Suzie once said that things got so bad with Rob that she began to fear for her safety. This showed just how bad things had gotten in their marriage. Still, like many in her situation, she stayed in that relationship for 15 years. In 2013, Rob was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a fast-moving and serious illness. Suzie stayed with him through his final months, facing a mix of emotions that were difficult to process. She shared that, near the end, Rob seemed to come to terms with it all. She even hinted at a calm ending, and perhaps a kind of closure their relationship hadn't seen before. After Rob's passing, Suzie found herself at a crossroads. She had spent a decade and a half overseas, building a life around a marriage that had left emotional scars. Now, she was alone, and the future felt uncertain. It was then that she made the decision to return to the UK, reconnecting with family and, in particular, her brother, Steve Fletcher, who had already found his place on The Repair Shop. It was Steve who encouraged Suzie to join the show in 2018. But most fans don't realize that, at first, Suzie was hesitant. The idea of stepping into a public-facing role on national television was far outside her comfort zone. But, with gentle encouragement from her brother and a desire to rebuild her life through something meaningful, she agreed. Joining The Repair Shop marked the start of a new chapter in Suzie's life. For the first time in years, she was surrounded by a supportive, collaborative environment. There were no raised voices, no judgment, and no fear. Just skilled hands, shared stories, and a common purpose. The shop became a kind of safe space, not just for the guests bringing in cherished items, but for Suzie herself. She's confessed that working on the show played a huge role in her healing process, not just because of the work, but because of the atmosphere, the people, and the chance to be part of something grounded and real. What's perhaps most remarkable is how Suzie carried the years of fear, loss, and emotional strain quietly on the show. She never tried to make herself the focus, or tried to lean into victimhood. Instead, she showed up, did the work, and slowly let her story emerge on her own terms. But while Suzie had been quietly fighting her own battles abroad, her brother, Steve, was facing a different kind of pressure back home. His life, though more stable on the surface, came with its own set of struggles, particularly when it came to holding onto a family legacy that felt like it might slip away at any moment. Steve Fletcher's personal struggles. Before The Repair Shop made him a familiar face, Steve Fletcher's world was already shaped by clocks and timekeeping. He's a third-generation horologist, following in the footsteps of his grandfather and father. And so, clock repair wasn't something he fell into. It was part of his upbringing. His grandfather and father both worked with precision and care. And, growing up in Oxfordshire, Steve spent a lot of time around ticking clocks, wooden cases, and metal tools. Still, carrying on the family tradition came with its own kind of pressure. No one actually forced Steve to follow in his father's footsteps. but the weight of expectation was always there. For a while, he tried a different path and trained to be a vet because he loved animals. In fact, he had a real passion for science and biology, and it seemed like a stable, respected path. However, something didn't quite fit, because the work didn't ignite the same curiosity and satisfaction he'd felt when, as a child, he helped his father dismantle and rebuild antique clocks. Eventually, Steve made the decision to return to the family trade. He opened the clock workshop in Witney, a quiet market town in Oxfordshire, where he began working with the same level of dedication and care his family had always practiced. At first, there was no glamour in it, just long hours, intricate repairs, and the slow building of a reputation. However, over time, his business became known for meticulous craftsmanship, with clients bringing in everything from centuries-old grandfather clocks to delicate carriage clocks that hadn't chimed in years. But Steve's journey wasn't just about career choices. His personal life has been just as full, though he's always kept it largely out of the public eye. Steve is a father of 5, something that often surprises fans who only know him from the screen. He has spoken about how much he values family life, crediting his children for keeping him grounded even as his public profile grew. A big part of Steve's steady presence over the years has been his partner, Mel. According to him, she played a key role in convincing him to join the repair shop. When the BBC first got in touch during the early stages of the show, Steve wasn't immediately on board because he wasn't looking for fame or to be on TV. His comfort zone was his quiet workshop, where he could stay focused and free from the distractions of cameras and production crews. But Mel saw the bigger picture, and she encouraged him to give it a try, reminding him that it wasn't just about showing off his skills, but about sharing the values, patience, and care behind the work. And looking back, Steve says, he remains grateful that he took her advice. Even now, with his popularity growing and his business well established, Steve faces a personal question that most people eventually do: retirement. He's currently in his 60s, and people often ask when he plans to slow down or step away. But Steve doesn't feel like that time has come. He's admitted he's just not ready yet. There are still too many repairs to finish, too many clocks and watches waiting for his hands. He has ideas of what retirement might look like. Perhaps more time for gardening, exploring art, and doing things just for himself. But so far, those things are still on hold because his schedule is still full with customer work, filming days, and family commitments. Steve also worries that by stepping away from the repair shop, he might feel like he's stepping away from who he is. Because for Steve, clockmaking isn't just a job. It's something that connects him to his father and grandfather. It's a legacy, and letting that go, even bit by bit, would feel like letting go of that history. Just like his sister Suzie, Steve doesn't often talk openly about personal struggles in front of the camera. He keeps his emotions in check, especially in public. But it's clear that carrying the weight of the family business and keeping the tradition alive hasn't been easy. Running a workshop, raising a large family, and now being one of the public faces of traditional craftsmanship on national TV come with their own pressures. Still, he handles it all with strength. But not everything in the world of the repair shop has been as steady as they look on the screen. Behind the scenes, the show has weathered its own share of controversy, and not all of it has sat comfortably with the fans or the cast. The repair shop controversies. Although the repair shop is known for its calm atmosphere, skilled craftsmanship, and touching stories, its journey hasn't been entirely without bumps. The show has maintained a strong, positive reputation over the years, staying far from the usual chaos associated with reality TV. But no show, no matter how beloved, is completely free from behind-the-scenes tension or public scrutiny. The repair shop has had to navigate a few of those moments too. One of the most significant moments of disruption came in 2024, when the show's most recognizable face, Jay Blades, stepped away from the screen. Jay, who had served as the warm and charismatic frontman of the show since its early days, became the subject of public attention for deeply disturbing and personal reasons. He was charged with controlling and coercive behavior, a legal matter that quickly made headlines and sparked conversations across social media. The allegations were so serious that the BBC responded by urgently removing episodes featuring him from the schedule in late 2024. They also made adjustments to the show's format. Rather than cancel or pause the series altogether, they introduced a spin-off titled Favorite Fixes, a collection of clips and previously aired segments that celebrated the show's best moments. The move was seen by some as a way of preserving the brand's continuity while the situation around Jay unfolded. However, the damage had been done. Jay was a central part of the program's identity, and his absence was felt not only by viewers but also by many of his co-stars. The public reaction was mixed. While some fans expressed disappointment and concern over the allegations, others reserved judgment, choosing to focus instead on the show's original mission: to highlight craftsmanship and human connection. And throughout the transition, the BBC remained cautious in its messaging, keeping details minimal while ensuring that the show could carry on without appearing dismissive of the situation. But beyond that high-profile controversy, the show has faced more subtle but persistent criticism around its editing style. Loyal viewers have pointed out that the repair shop places more emphasis on emotional storytelling, sometimes at the cost of showing the detailed craftsmanship that originally defined the program. For viewers who came to the show because of a passion for craftsmanship, the shift hasn't gone unnoticed. But where earlier episodes might have included in-depth demonstrations, like the inner workings of a clock mechanism or the step-by-step revival of cracked leather, recent segments often focus more on the personal stories attached to the items. And many fans still value this emotional depth and the human connections it brings. This editorial choice has sparked debate online, especially among viewers who work in or follow the world of traditional craftsmanship. For them, the restoration process is the heart of the show, and so reducing that to a few short clips or montages feels like a missed opportunity. Still, the show's popularity has continued to hold strong, which suggests that its broader audience still finds meaning in its current format. Despite the occasional controversy, the show's core team, which includes Steve and Suzie Fletcher, Will Kirk and Dominic Chinea, has stayed constant. Their focus has remained squarely on the work itself. They haven't weighed in publicly on the show's edits or criticisms, choosing instead to let their consistency speak for them. In many ways, these challenges, from the legal issues, criticism, and internal adjustments, have tested the repair shop's resilience. But they've also forced the program to reflect on what it stands for. And through it all, Suzie and Steve Fletcher have remained quietly observant. With their feet firmly planted in the heart of the workshop, they've seen the show evolve from a small BBC Two series into a national treasure. And now they've opened up about how the repair shop has deeply impacted them in ways no one could have predicted. How the show has impacted Suzie and Steve. Even though the repair shop feels calm and gentle on the surface, it has had a much deeper emotional impact on its cast than many viewers might expect, especially for siblings Suzie and Steve Fletcher. Behind the quiet focus and friendly smiles, there's often a lot of emotion involved. While the show is about fixing objects, the work often brings up feelings of loss, personal memories, and emotional vulnerability for the people doing the repairs. For Suzie, this emotional weight has been difficult to handle. She's been honest about the fact that what viewers see on screen almost never shows the full picture. A lot of the emotional moments, especially scenes where she cries or reflects privately, are edited out of the show. In fact, Suzie has confessed that she's often moved to tears during the filming of the show, not just by the stories people share, but also because those stories remind her of experiences from her own life. One moment that really stuck with Suzie happened during the restoration of a rocking horse that belonged to a woman's late husband. The woman's story of loss brought up emotions Suzie had been carrying herself for a long time. According to Suzie, it became too much to handle, so she had to quietly step away from filming for a while. This emotional response wasn't planned, and Suzie later explained that she needed space to collect herself. Speaking about the moment in an interview, she said, "I didn't expect to break down like this, but the trigger was enormous, and I'd kept things bottled up for so long." This kind of emotional response is part of what makes the show powerful, but it also creates a quiet pressure on the experts doing the repairs. They're not just fixing objects, they're dealing with memories and emotions too. And that pressure doesn't just come from the personal stories. It also shows up in the care and precision the work demands. For Steve, the most challenging moments are often tied to the expectation of perfection. Antique timepieces, some of them centuries old, are often entrusted to him with the unspoken understanding that they're irreplaceable. One misstep could mean losing a piece of family history forever. In one episode, he worked on a particularly rare clock, which was delicate, valuable, and deeply personal to the family who brought it in. Steve later said that he could barely sleep during that restoration due to the pressure, not just to fix it, but to do justice to the memory it holds. This sense of responsibility weighs heavily, even for someone with decades of experience. Despite these challenges, both Suzie and Steve have grown in ways they didn't anticipate when they first stepped onto the show. For Suzie, the experience became a turning point in her personal healing. After the loss of her husband and the difficult years that came before it, the repair shop gave her structure, support, and a new sense of belonging. She found herself slowly opening up, not just to colleagues, but to the public. That openness took a major step forward when she published her memoir, The Sun Over the Mountains. In it, Suzie detailed her deeply personal journey, from her move to America to her difficult marriage, her husband's illness, and the slow process of grief and recovery that followed. She also wrote about her return to the UK, her bond with her brother Steve, and how joining the repair shop helped her begin again. It was the first time she had put her story into her own words, and for many readers, it offered a new understanding of the quiet strength she brings to every episode. She's also spoken candidly about living with dyslexia, something she only came to fully understand later in life. For years, she felt the quiet frustration of being intelligent and capable, yet struggling with written communication and self-doubt. This vulnerability, combined with her past trauma, made the prospect of being on camera feel daunting at first. But in interviews, Suzie has said the show and its supportive team gave her something she hadn't felt in years: confidence. As for fame, neither Suzie nor Steve ever sought it. Their appearances on The Repair Shop were never about becoming public figures. Yet, with the show's success, they've both become widely recognized across the UK and beyond. Suzie has said that what surprised her most was how kind people are. She also often describes the cast and crew of The Repair Shop as her family. After so many years of navigating personal challenges largely on her own, she found in the barn a sense of community. That feeling of belonging helped her rebuild herself from the inside out, not unlike the objects they restore. For Steve, his thoughts are more private, but just as important. He's proud of what the show stands for, especially its role in keeping traditional skills alive that have been in his family for generations. To him, the repair shop is more than just a TV show. It's a way to connect the past and present, showing that careful, hands-on work still has real value and that memories can be honored through that process. But for both Suzie and Steve Fletcher, the show isn't just a job. It's been a way to heal, to reconnect with their family's legacy, and to build something lasting, not just with tools and old objects, but with care, trust, and real emotion. What do you think? Should Suzie and Steve stay on the repair shop for much longer, or is it time to retire? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen. Like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.